What's up guys, Groovy Guitar Dude here with a beginner guitar tutorial for All I Want by Kodaline. If this video helps you out, hit that like and subscribe button and let me know down in the comments below what are the songs by Kodaline that you want to learn on guitar. Guys, the first thing that you want to know to play All I Want on guitar is that we're going to be in standard tuning and we will not need a capo to play this song. The next thing that you want to know to play All I Want on guitar is the structure of this song. We're going to start with a verse, then go to chorus, then we're going to have another verse and another chorus, then we'll have a bridge and we'll finish up the song with one last chorus. And the last thing that you want to know before we dive into All I Want is the 6 chords that you need to play this song. The first one is C, the next one is C over B, the next one is A minor, the next one is G, the next one is D minor, and the last one is F. And I'll have short 15-second chord tutorial videos linked for all of those in the pinned comment below for those of you who need them. And with all that in mind, guys, let's dive into All I Want. Guys, I am a big fan of Kodaline, and I love beautifully sad songs like this. This is a perfect example of one of those songs that is super, super sad, but it's really beautiful. It's kind of almost like a guilty pleasure of mine is these kinds of songs. So it's also a very beautiful and pretty much iconic acoustic guitar song. This is Kodaline's most well-known song. Pretty much anybody who knows Kodaline knows this song, or even if you don't know Kodaline, you've probably heard this song before. It's a lot of fun to play. It's fairly beginner friendly. The biggest thing about this song that's a little bit challenging is that it's just kind of a lot to remember. There's kind of a lot of moving parts, but most of it is just beginner friendly chord progressions and strum patterns. So with all that in mind, the first thing that we're going to take a look at for All I Want is what we're playing for our verses, which is actually the most complicated part of the song just because it's a lot to remember. But again, beginner friendly chord progressions and strum patterns, so don't be too intimidated. Just be sure to take some notes if you need to. The first thing that we're going to take a look at for our verses is what we're using for our chord progression. Now, this is going to look really intimidating because, again, it's just a lot of moving parts, but this is all very beginner friendly. It's just kind of a lot to remember. So the first thing you'll notice about this chord progression is that there's a number next to each one of those chords, and that number actually corresponds to how many times we're going to play through the strum pattern for each one of those chords. We'll get to that in just a little bit whenever we tackle the strum pattern for this, but let's start out with just going through the chord progression together. So we're going to start with the C chord, then go to F, and then back to C. And that's the first line. Pretty easy there. Next thing we're going to do is go to that second line. For our second line, we're going to start with the C chord, and then we'll go to C over B, and then A minor. And then from there, we'll go to our third line, which is going to be F, and then back to C. Now, whenever we play through this verse, we're going to play through that whole thing one time, those first 3 lines one time, and then we're going to actually repeat that a second time, but whenever we repeat it the second time, we're actually going to include that bottom line there that's in parentheses. So first time through, we just play those first 3 lines. Second time through, we play all 4 of those lines. So second time through, we'll go from that last C on the third line, we'll go to F, then to C, then to G over B. And that G over B right there will take us into our choruses or out of the song in the very last chorus of the song. So again, play through those first 3 lines 2 times, and on the second time we'll include that 4th line. And that whole thing right there is played just once through for each verse. So we'll play that whole thing once through for each verse. It won't be repeated at all. So now that we have a pretty good idea of what we're playing for our chord progressions for our verse, let's take a look at our strum pattern. Now, this strum pattern is going to be the same strum pattern that's used through the whole entire song. So fortunately, even though the chord progressions are kind of hard to remember, the strum pattern is not, because we're just going to use the same one through the whole song. So I'm going to use the C chord as our example here, since that's our first chord. And let's take a look at this strum pattern. For each chord, we're going to play down, up, down, up, down, up, but quite a bit quicker, however many times the number is next to that chord. So for example, that first C chord there, we're going to play through that strum pattern twice. So we'll go down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. Just like that before we go to the F chord right there. So that's what those numbers next to those chords mean, is we're going to play down, up, down, up, however many times as the number is next to that chord. So let's walk through this whole thing together. It's going to be a bit of a lot, but we'll walk through it together so you can make sure you got all the right stuff in all the right places. So again, we'll start with that C chord. We got twice through that C chord, so we'll go down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. About like that. And then we'll go to F. And then back to C. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's our first line. Next, we'll go to that second line. We got C twice, so we'll go 1, 2, C over B, 1, A minor, 2, 3, 4. And then we'll go to that third line, so we'll go to an F. We got 3 times to that F, so we'll go 1, 2, 3, and then to C 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the end of the first time through that chord progression, the first time through those 3 lines. So we'll go back to the very beginning there. We'll go to the very first C on the top line. We'll go 1, 2, F, 1, back to C, 1, 2, 3, 4. Second line, C, 1, 2. C over B, 1, A minor, 1, 2, 3, 4. Third line, F, 1, 2, 3. C, 1, 2, 3, 4. Last line, fourth line, which is the very last line before we go into our chorus. We got F 3 times. 1, 2, 3. Oh, 3. I almost went to 4 on accident. Then we'll go to C 2 times. 1, 2. And then C over B. 1, 2. And that'll lead us into our chorus. So again, guys, that looks like a lot. It looks really intimidating, but it's really not as complicated as it seems. All you got to do is use that strum pattern, however many times is the number next to each chord. And then we're going to play through those first 3 lines once. Then we'll repeat those first 3 lines and add that 4th line in at the very end there right before we go into our choruses. So it looks like a lot of moving parts, but really it's just a couple chord progressions, and it's only played once through for each verse. That whole thing is only played through once for each verse before we go into our chorus. And then we have our bridge, which is the only other chord progression, and both of those are significantly easier and easier to remember than this as well. Again, it's really not too terribly complicated once you get all the right stuff in all the right places, or again, take some notes if you need to and read off of those as you're playing, just so you can make sure you got the right stuff in the right places. So guys, again, that only plays through once for each verse, but I'm gonna go ahead and play through it a couple of times just so that you can make sure you have all the right stuff in all the right places. So with that in mind, a couple of times through the chord progressions and the strum pattern that'll play all the way through the verses on All I Want will look about like this without me talking. From there, guys, things start to get much, much easier. The next thing that we're going to take a look at is what we're playing for our choruses in All I Want. For our choruses, we're just going to have one chord progression, and we're going to have the same strum pattern repeated 4 times for each chord. This is going to be so much easier and more straightforward. You guys, I'm sure, are looking forward to a much easier chord progression here because the verse was kind of a lot to take in. So with that in mind, the chord progression we're going to be using for our choruses is going to be A minor, F, C, and G. Just like that, repeated all the way through the chorus. And then again, guys, we're gonna use that same down, up, down, up, down, up strum pattern for each of those chords, and we're gonna play it 4 times for each one of those chords. So we'll do a little walkthrough of that, starting with our A minor. We'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, F, 1, 2, 3, 4, C, 1, 2, 3, 4, G, 1, 2, 3, 4. Just like that, repeated through all of the choruses. Much easier, I know, right? So it's pretty straightforward. Like I said, just a single chord progression, a single strum pattern. If you've made it this far, if you got through the verses, this should be an absolute breeze for you. So with that in mind, guys, a couple times through the chord progression and strum pattern, it's gonna repeat all the way through the choruses on All I Want. We'll look about like this without me talking. And from there, guys, the only other things you need to know to play All I Want on guitar is what we're playing for our bridge. For our bridge, we're gonna have a very simple chord progression, and then we're actually gonna have the same strum pattern that we just used for our choruses. We're gonna use it for our bridge as well. So first, let's take a look at the chord progression. For the chord progression for our bridge, we're gonna play D minor and G. And that's it. Just D minor and G repeated throughout the bridge. It's a fairly short bridge, so after we get out of that bridge, we're just gonna repeat the chord progression for the chord progression for the chorus through pretty much the rest of the song. So fairly short bridge, but we're just gonna go back and forth between that D minor and the G for that. And then again, we're using that same strum pattern we just used for our chorus, which is that down, up, down, up, down, up, 4 times for each chord. So a little walkthrough of what that'll look like. We'll start with our D minor. We'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, G, 1, 2, 3, 4. And we'll just repeat that just like that a couple times, and then we're out of that and into the chorus chord progression through the entire rest of the song. So nothing too crazy here, guys. If you've made it this far, this should be an absolute breeze for you, no problem at all. But a couple of times through the chord progression and the strum pattern that we're gonna be using for our bridge on All I Want will look about like this without me talking. And guys, that is everything that you need to know to play All I Want on guitar. As always, if you have any questions, you can hit me up in the comments down below. I'm usually pretty quick getting back to those. And again, if this video helped you out, hit that subscribe button. I have about 850 other guitar and ukulele lessons on this channel. I usually try to post at least 3 to 5 new lessons every single week. So if you're learning guitar or ukulele, there couldn't be a more perfect channel for you to check out. If you want to get a sneak peek of what songs I'm working on next, be sure to hit up my Instagram @TheGroovyGuitarDude. And lastly guys, if you want to support the channel and get your name in the credits at the end of each new guitar tutorial, be sure to hit up my Patreon at patreon.com/thegroovyguitardude. Link for that will be in the description below. Guys, All I Want is a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful sad song. I'm totally a sucker for this kind of song. I've actually been teaching a lot of these kind of songs this week, and I've been getting a lot of requests for All I Want lately, and I've kind of gotten them for years because this song is not a new song. But I absolutely love this song. This is the first Kodaline song that I heard. I think it's a lot of people's first Kodaline song. I actually really, really love Kodaline, and I have been meaning to come back to this song for a long time because it's kind of a, nowadays it's actually kind of a staple acoustic guitar song. It's becoming a staple acoustic guitar song. It's almost like Yellow by Coldplay or something like that. It's kind of easing its way into that category a little bit. And so it's a beautiful song. Again, fairly beginner friendly on guitar. There's nothing too crazy going on here. The biggest thing is just remembering where everything goes in that verse, because the verse is just kind of a lot to remember. And then of course the F chord might be a little tricky for the beginners out there, but again, I will have a really quick video lesson for that in the pinned comment down below if you need it. But this is just a beautiful song, guys. I've been meaning to teach this one to you guys for the longest time. It's a lot of fun. It's becoming an iconic staple acoustic guitar song, and I'm a huge fan of it. I hope you guys have as much fun learning this song as I did. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see y'all soon.